The sound of glass shattering against the restaurant wall made every head turn, including Caleb Xander's. He had been finishing a late dinner with his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, when the commotion erupted 3 tables away. A tall man in an expensive suit stood over a woman with auburn hair, his face contorted with rage as he towered above her. "You think you're so much better than everyone else, don't you?" The man snarled, his voice carrying across the now silent restaurant. "Just because of your family name." Caleb instinctively shifted in his seat to block Lily's view. This wasn't something a child should witness. The woman remained seated, her posture rigid but dignified despite the humiliation. Her voice, when she spoke, was low but steady. "Marcus, you're making a scene. Please sit down or leave." The man, Marcus, laughed bitterly. "Oh, I'm leaving all right, and you can pay for this disaster of a dinner with your precious millions." He threw his napkin onto the table and stormed out, leaving a wake of uncomfortable silence. Caleb turned back to Lily, whose wide eyes reflected concern beyond her years. "Is that lady okay, Daddy?" His heart swelled with pride at his daughter's empathy. "I don't know, sweetheart. Let's finish our mac and cheese, okay?" But Lily's attention remained fixed on the woman, who now sat alone, staring at her untouched plate. The restaurant's chatter slowly resumed, but Caleb noticed how people kept stealing glances at her, whispering behind menus. "She looks sad," Lily observed, "like when Mommy left." The simple comparison hit Caleb hard. 3 years had passed since his wife had decided that family life wasn't for her, leaving him to raise Lily alone. It hadn't been easy balancing his job as a high school English teacher with single parenthood stretched him thin financially and emotionally, but they managed. "Sometimes grown-ups have arguments, Lil. It's not our business." Lily pushed her plate away. "But she's all alone now." Caleb sighed, recognizing the stubborn set of his daughter's jaw. When she got that look, there was no deterring her. He glanced at his watch. It was already past her bedtime on a school night. "We need to go home, sweetie. It's getting late." As they stood to leave, Caleb took care of their modest bill and helped Lily into her jacket. They had to pass by the woman's table on their way out, and Lily slowed her steps deliberately. The woman looked up as they approached, and Caleb was struck by her eyes, deep brown with flecks of amber, now rimmed with unshed tears she was too proud to release in public. She offered a small smile to Lily, who had stopped completely. "Your hair is pretty," Lily announced, with the disarming directness that only children can manage. "It looks like fall leaves." The woman's expression softened instantly. "Thank you, I like your unicorn shirt," Lily beamed, tugging at the glittery fabric. "Daddy got it for my birthday." "I'm 6 now. 6 is a very important age," the woman replied seriously. Caleb placed a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. "Sorry to interrupt your evening," he said quietly. "We're just heading out." The woman's gaze shifted to him, and for a moment, Caleb felt strangely exposed, as if she could see through the carefully constructed facade of a man who had everything under control. "It's no interruption," she assured him. Your daughter brightened what has been a rather dismal evening." Something in her voice, a note of genuine weariness, made Caleb hesitate. "Are you going to be okay? That was quite a scene earlier." She waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, that was just Marcus being Marcus. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time I've endured one of his tantrums." She hesitated before adding, "Though it will certainly be the last." "Did he drive you here?" Caleb found himself asking. A flicker of realization crossed her face. "He did, actually. I suppose I'll need to call a car service." Lily tugged at Caleb's hand. "Daddy, we can drive her home." "Like when you helped Miss Peterson when her car broke." Caleb felt heat rise to his cheeks. "Lily, I'm sure the lady can arrange her own transportation. We shouldn't impose." The woman studied them for a moment, then smiled, a real smile this time, not the polite one she'd been wearing. "Actually, I'd appreciate the ride if it's not too much trouble. I'm Natalie Donovan, Caleb Xanders," he replied, extending his hand. "And this is my daughter, Lily." Natalie's handshake was firm, her skin soft against his calloused palm. "It's nice to meet you both. And I promise I don't live far, just downtown." Downtown meant the high-rise apartment buildings that Caleb could never afford on a teacher's salary. "We're heading that direction anyway," he lied smoothly, not wanting her to feel like a burden. As they walked to the parking lot, Caleb became acutely aware of his 10-year-old Honda Civic with its faded paint and the booster seat in the back. He hurriedly cleared away empty coffee cups and student papers from the passenger seat before opening the door for Natalie. "Sorry about the mess," he apologized. "I grade papers during Lily's dance classes." "You're a teacher?" Natalie asked, settling into the seat without a hint of judgment. "High school English at Roosevelt," he confirmed, helping Lily into her booster seat. "10th and 11th grade." "That must be rewarding," Natalie said, and something in her tone made him think she genuinely meant it. As they drove, Lily regaled Natalie with stories about her first-grade class and her best friend Emma. Caleb noticed how attentively Natalie listened, asking questions that delighted Lily with their thoughtfulness. "Take a left at the next light," Natalie directed eventually. "I'm in the Archer building." Caleb couldn't hide his surprise. The Archer was one of the most exclusive addresses in the city, with a doorman and a view that stretched across the skyline. He had driven past it many times but had never had a reason to stop. "Impressive building," he commented neutrally as he pulled up to the entrance. Natalie smiled. "It's home, thank you both for the ride." She turned to look at Lily in the back seat. "And thank you for cheering me up, Lily. 6 really is a magical age." She reached for the door handle, then paused. "I don't suppose. Would you like to have coffee sometime, Caleb?" "As a thank you for rescuing me tonight." The invitation caught him off guard. Women like Natalie, poised, elegant, living in luxury buildings, didn't typically ask men like him for coffee. But there was something genuine in her expression that made him nod. "I'd like that." They exchanged numbers, and Caleb watched as she disappeared into the gleaming lobby, greeted by name by the uniformed doorman. "I like her, Daddy," Lily declared as they pulled away. "She smells like cookies," Caleb laughed. "Does she now? Can we see her again?" "We'll see, Lil. Now let's get you home and into bed." Later that night, after tucking Lily in, Caleb sat at his kitchen table grading essays. His phone lit up with a text message. "Thank you again for tonight. Your daughter is wonderful. Coffee tomorrow." Natalie, he stared at the message, surprised she had texted so soon. After a moment's hesitation, he replied, "Tomorrow works. I finish teaching at 3:30. Her response came quickly, "Perfect. Bluebird Cafe at 4, it's near your school." Caleb knew the place a cozy, upscale coffee shop where he rarely ventured because a single latte cost as much as a week of the break room coffee he usually drank. But for once, he decided he could splurge. "See you then," he wrote back. The next day dragged interminably. His students noticed his distraction during their discussion of The Great Gatsby, and by the final period, even the normally apathetic seniors were exchanging knowing looks. "Hot date, Mr. X?" Zach Bennett asked with a smirk as the bell rang. "Just coffee with a friend," Caleb replied, feeling oddly like one of his teenage students. He managed to change his rumpled button down for a fresh one he kept in his classroom for emergencies, before heading to the cafe. The Bluebird was busy but not crowded, with soft jazz playing and the rich aroma of quality coffee filling the air. Natalie was already there, seated at a corner table by the window. Today, her auburn hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore jeans and a cream-colored sweater that made her look younger and more approachable than she had the night before. She waved when she saw him, and Caleb felt an unexpected flutter in his chest. "How was your day of molding young minds?" she asked as he sat down. "Less molding, more herding cats," he replied with a laugh. "But we had some good discussions about symbolism in Fitzgerald that almost made up for the blank stares during grammar review." A server approached, and before Caleb could order, Natalie said, 2 almond milk lattes and a slice of their chocolate torte to share. "Unless you'd prefer something else," Caleb nodded, impressed by her confident order. "That sounds perfect." "I took the liberty of coming early to study the menu," she admitted with a slight blush. "I've never actually been here before." "Really? I assumed this was your regular spot, suggesting it and all." Natalie shook her head. "I looked up cafes near Roosevelt High. The reviews for this place were stellar." She hesitated, then added, "I don't actually get out much for casual things like coffee. My work keeps me rather isolated." "What do you do?" Caleb asked, realizing he knew almost nothing about her beyond her name and address. Something flickered across her face, wariness, perhaps, before she answered. I work in investment management, family business. It's terribly boring to most people. Try explaining the nuances of semicolon usage to 16-year-olds, Caleb countered. I think I win the boring job contest. Her laugh was warm and genuine. Fair point, but I bet you make a difference every day. That's something special. Their conversation flowed easily after that. Natalie asked thoughtful questions about his teaching philosophy and listened intently to stories about Lily. In turn, she shared anecdotes about growing up with 3 older brothers and her passion for art history, which she'd studied in college before joining her family's firm. I still visit museums whenever I can, she told him. There's something about standing in front of a painting that's survived centuries that puts everything in perspective. Lily would love that, Caleb said without thinking. She's going through an artistic phase. Our refrigerator is covered in masterpieces. I'd love to see them sometime, Natalie said softly, then looked surprised at her own words. 2 hours passed in what felt like minutes. When Caleb finally checked his watch, he jumped up. I need to pick up Lily from her after-school program. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize, Natalie insisted, gathering her things. Family comes first, always. There was something in her tone, a sincerity that went beyond politeness that made Caleb pause. Would you like to join us for dinner? It's nothing fancy, just spaghetti night at our place, but Lily would be thrilled. The invitation had slipped out impulsively, and he immediately worried it was too forward or too mundane for someone like Natalie, but her face lit up. I'd love that, if you're sure I won't be intruding. Not at all, Caleb assured her, trying to remember if he'd picked up his laundry from the living room floor that morning. They took separate cars, Natalie following in a modest silver Audi that surprised Caleb with its understated practicality. Lily was ecstatic to see Natalie again, immediately dragging her to see the classroom pet hamster she'd been allowed to bring home for the weekend. Caleb's apartment was in an older building on the edge of a decent neighborhood. It was small but tidy, with mismatched furniture and walls decorated with Lily's artwork. He felt a flash of self-consciousness as Natalie took it all in, but if she was judging their modest home, it didn't show on her face. This is so cozy, she said, running her hand along the worn leather of his second-hand couch. It feels like a real home. Lily appointed herself tour guide, proudly showing Natalie her room with its unicorn bedspread and overflowing bookshelf. Daddy reads to me every night, she informed Natalie. Even when he's super tired. That's because books are magic, Caleb called from the kitchen, where he was putting water on to boil. Can I help with dinner? Natalie offered, joining him. You can chop the garlic if you want, he suggested, sliding a cutting board her way. Natalie picked up the knife with surprising confidence. My housekeeper taught me some basics. She got tired of me eating takeout every night. You have a housekeeper? Lily asked, climbing onto a stool at the counter. Natalie froze momentarily. I do. Her name is Rosa, and she's been with my family since I was younger than you. Cool. Is she nice? Does she make cookies? Daddy makes the best chocolate chip cookies. Natalie relaxed at Lily's simple acceptance. She does make amazing churros. Maybe you can try them sometime. The evening unfolded with a natural ease that surprised Caleb. Natalie fit seamlessly into their routine, helping Lily set the table and listening to her chatter about school. During dinner, she shared a story about her brothers teaching her to play baseball that had Lily giggling uncontrollably. After they'd eaten, Natalie insisted on helping with dishes while Caleb supervised Lily's bath time. When he returned to the kitchen, he found Natalie staring at the calendar on his refrigerator, where he'd carefully noted parent-teacher conferences, bill due dates, and Lily's activities. You juggle a lot, she observed quietly. Caleb shrugged. No more than any single parent we manage, but you do it with such grace, Natalie said, turning to face him. Lily is extraordinary, and that's because of you. Something in her expression, admiration, tinged with something deeper, made his heart race. They stood there in his small kitchen, the distance between them charged with possibility. The moment was broken by Lily calling from the bathroom. Daddy, I'm ready for my story, Natalie smiled. Go. Read some magic. "You're welcome to join us," Caleb offered, and so he found himself sitting on Lily's bed with Natalie beside him, reading Charlotte's Web while Lily nestled between them. By the time Wilbur was meeting Charlotte for the first time, Lily had fallen asleep. "She had a big day," Caleb whispered, carefully extracting himself. Natalie followed him out of the room, and he closed the door halfway, leaving it open just enough for the hallway light to filter in. In the living room, an awkward silence fell between them. It had been so long since Caleb had navigated these waters, the end of an evening with a woman he was attracted to, the question of what came next hanging in the air. "I should probably go," Natalie said finally. "I have an early meeting tomorrow," Caleb nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. "Thank you for joining our chaotic dinner. It was the best evening I've had in longer than I can remember," she admitted. "Would you like to do something this weekend, all three of us? There's an interactive art exhibit at the Children's Museum that Lily might enjoy." "She'd love that," Caleb said, relief washing over him. "So would I." At the door, Natalie hesitated, then leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "Good night, Caleb." The weekend date at the museum turned into dinner afterward, which evolved into a Sunday afternoon at the park. Before Caleb knew it, Natalie had become a regular fixture in their lives. She brought thoughtful gifts for Lily, art supplies, books, a telescope that Caleb knew cost more than he'd spend on Christmas, but always checked with him first and never made him feel like her generosity was charity. What surprised Caleb most was how down-to-earth Natalie was. She arrived for their outings in jeans and sweaters, drove her modest Audi rather than calling a car service, and seemed genuinely delighted by simple pleasures like ice cream from a street vendor or feeding ducks at the park. Only occasionally did glimpses of her other life show through. The way Mater D's sometimes recognized her at restaurants, how she absent-mindedly mentioned meeting the mayor at a function, or the time she had to reschedule their plans because her helicopter couldn't take off due to weather. "Helicopter?" Caleb had repeated, sure he'd misheard. "For a client meeting upstate," Natalie had explained quickly. One of the perks or hazards of the job. He knew she came from money. Her apartment in the Archer had made that clear from the start, but the extent of her wealth remained vague. Whenever the topic veered toward her work or background, she deftly redirected the conversation. One evening, about 2 months after they'd met, Caleb was grading papers while Lily played with the elaborate dollhouse Natalie had brought over the previous weekend. His phone rang with a number he didn't recognize, Mr. Zanders. A formal voice inquired. "This is Bernard Whitaker, chief editor at Pendleton Publishing. I understand you've been working on a young adult novel." Caleb nearly dropped the phone. He had indeed spent the last 5 years writing a fantasy novel for teens, sending out queries to agents and publishers with no success. "Yes, that's right. How did you? We received your manuscript last week and found it quite compelling. We'd like to discuss publication options if you're interested." Stunned, Caleb agreed to a meeting the following day. After hanging up, he sat in disbelief. He hadn't submitted to Pendleton, one of the biggest publishers in the country, because they didn't accept unsolicited manuscripts. When Natalie arrived for dinner that night, bringing takeout from his favorite Thai restaurant, he recounted the strange call. "That's amazing," she exclaimed, but something in her expression made him suspicious. "Natalie," he said slowly, "did you have something to do with this?" She busied herself with unpacking the food. "I may have mentioned your book to a friend who knows someone at Pendleton." "How did you even get a copy of my manuscript?" he asked, torn between gratitude and unease. Natalie looked embarrassed. "Remember when I borrowed your laptop to check my email while you were bathing Lily? I saw the file on your desktop." She reached for his hand. "I only read a few pages, but it was brilliant, Caleb. You deserve this chance." His initial irritation faded. "Thank you for believing in me. But I want to succeed on my own merits, not because someone pulled strings." "Bernard wouldn't consider it if it wasn't good," Natalie assured him. "I just opened a door. You walked through it with your talent." The meeting with Pendleton went better than Caleb could have dreamed. They offered an advance that would ease his financial strain considerably and talked enthusiastically about a potential series. When he called Natalie afterward, she insisted on a celebration. "Let me take you and Lily somewhere special this weekend," she suggested. My family has a lake house upstate. It's peaceful, beautiful, the perfect place to relax and let this sink in. Caleb hesitated. They'd been dating for 2 months, but had carefully maintained certain boundaries. They hadn't spent the night together yet, conscious of Lily's presence and the example they set. Just as friends if you prefer, Natalie added quickly, sensing his reservation. Separate rooms. I thought Lily might enjoy the canoe and the wildlife. The weekend at the lake house marked a turning point. What Natalie had modestly called a lake house turned out to be a stunning modern retreat with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a pristine lake. Lily was enchanted by the private dock, the family of deer that visited at dusk, and the massive game room complete with a popcorn machine. On their second night, after Lily had fallen asleep exhausted from a day of swimming and hiking, Caleb and Natalie sat on the deck with glasses of wine, watching the moonlight shimmer on the water. "I've been keeping something from you," Natalie said suddenly, her voice quiet but determined. "And I don't want to anymore." Caleb set down his glass, a knot forming in his stomach. "Okay," she took a deep breath. "My family doesn't just work in investments. We own Donovan Global Investments. It's one of the largest private equity firms in the country." Caleb nodded slowly, pieces falling into place. "I figured you were quite well off, given the apartment and this place." "It's more than that," Natalie continued. "I'm not just well off, I'm the CEO. After my father retired last year, I took over. The company manages over $40 billion in assets." The number hit Caleb like a physical force. $40 billion, he repeated numbly. "I didn't tell you because." Natalie twisted her hands in her lap. "People treat me differently when they know. Men either want me for my money or are intimidated by it." That night at the restaurant when Marcus made that scene, he just found out exactly how much I was worth and was angry that I deceived him by not flaunting it. "Is that why you didn't tell me? You thought I'd be like him?" Natalie met his eyes. "No. I didn't tell you because with you and Lily, for the first time in my life, I felt normal, valued for who I am, not what I own. You rescued me that night without knowing or caring about my bank account." Caleb was quiet for a long moment, processing. "I understand why you didn't tell me. But relationships need honesty, Natalie, even about the hard things, maybe especially about those." "I know," she whispered. "And I'm sorry, are you angry?" He considered the question carefully. "No, not angry, a bit overwhelmed maybe, it's a lot to take in." "Does it change how you feel about me?" The vulnerability in her voice struck him. Caleb reached for her hand. "I fell for the woman who listens to my daughter's stories like they're the most important things in the world, who brings soup when I'm sick and remembers how I take my coffee, who gets excited about 19th century poetry and cries at Disney movies." He squeezed her fingers. "Your bank account doesn't change any of that." Relief washed over Natalie's face. "So we're okay." Instead of answering with words, Caleb leaned forward and kissed her their first real kiss after weeks of growing closer. It was gentle at first, then deepened as Natalie responded, her hands coming up to frame his face. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Caleb rested his forehead against hers. "We're more than okay." That night they talked for hours. Natalie shared the pressure she'd felt growing up as the only daughter in a dynasty, her struggles to prove herself in a male-dominated industry, and her loneliness, despite being surrounded by people. Caleb spoke about his failed marriage, his fears of not being enough for Lily, and his dreams for his writing. In the morning, they were awakened by Lily bouncing onto Natalie's bed, where they had fallen asleep still dressed, simply holding each other. "Daddy, Natalie." "There's a baby deer outside my window," Lily exclaimed, oblivious to the significance of finding them together. Over the next several months, their relationship blossomed. Natalie gradually introduced Caleb to parts of her world charity galas, art auctions, weekend trips to New York while continuing to embrace his. She attended school events, helped with Lily's science projects, and even chaperoned a field trip, charming Caleb's colleagues and his daughter's friends alike. For Lily's 7th birthday, Natalie helped Caleb organize a unicorn-themed party at their apartment, insisting on keeping it simple rather than letting her rent out an entire amusement park as she'd initially suggested. "It's what Lily wants," Natalie had said when Caleb expressed surprise. A home party with her friends. The venue doesn't matter, the love does. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep surrounded by new toys, Caleb found Natalie in the kitchen, washing frosting off plates. "Move in with us," he said without preamble. Natalie turned, soapy hands dripping on the floor. "What? Move in with us?" he repeated. "I know our apartment is a fraction of the size of yours and the neighborhood isn't prestigious, but yes," Natalie interrupted, a smile spreading across her face. "Yes, I'd love to." "You didn't let me finish my persuasive argument," Caleb protested with a laugh. Natalie stepped closer, wrapping her arms around his neck despite her wet hands. "I don't need persuading to choose love and family over square footage." Caleb kissed her, then pulled back with a serious expression. "I should warn you, though the water pressure is inconsistent, the upstairs neighbor practices cello at midnight, and the closet space is minimal." "Sounds perfect," Natalie murmured against his lips. They compromised in the end. Rather than Natalie moving into Caleb's apartment, they found a spacious brownstone halfway between his school and her office. It was still a splurge by Caleb's standards, but modest enough by Natalie's that he could contribute meaningfully to their household. Lily thrived in their new home, delighted to have both a backyard and Natalie as a permanent fixture in her life. She took to calling Natalie Nat, and sought her advice on everything from art projects to playground politics. One evening, nearly a year after they'd met, Caleb returned home from a teacher conference to find Lily and Natalie in the kitchen, flour dusting both their faces as they attempted to make pasta from scratch. "Daddy," Lily exclaimed, "we're making surprise dinner for you." "I can see that," Caleb laughed, taking in the chaos of the kitchen. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion," Natalie said, wiping her hands on her apron, a ridiculous frilly thing Lily had picked out for her. "Just because we love you." The simple declaration, offered so casually, hit Caleb with unexpected force. He watched them together, his daughter, and the woman who had walked into their lives by chance and knew with absolute certainty what he needed to do. The following weekend, he enlisted Lily's help in planning a special dinner at home. They decorated the dining room with fairy lights and Lily's artwork, and Caleb prepared Natalie's favorite meal, his grandmother's recipe for coq au vin. When Natalie arrived home from a rare Saturday at the office, she stopped in the doorway, taking in the transformed space. "What's all this?" Lily, dressed in her favorite dress with a flower tucked behind her ear, stepped forward solemnly. "It's a special dinner because Daddy has an important question." Natalie's eyes widened as she turned to Caleb, who was already kneeling on one knee, a small velvet box in his hand. "Natalie Donovan," he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "you walked into our lives on the worst date of your life, and somehow it became the luckiest night of mine. You've brought joy, laughter, and love into our home. You've embraced everything about our lives, just as we are." He opened the box, revealing a vintage emerald ring that had belonged to his grandmother. It was modest compared to the jewelry Natalie could afford, but he knew she would understand its significance. "I don't care that you're a billionaire CEO. I care that you're the woman who reads extra chapters of Charlotte's Web because Lily asks you to, who brings me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings, who calls just to hear about my day teaching teenagers about dangling participles." He took a deep breath. "Will you marry me and make our family complete?" Tears spilled down Natalie's cheeks as she nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Yes," she finally managed. 1,000 times yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Lily launched herself at both of them, creating a group hug that nearly toppled Caleb from his kneeling position. "Does this mean Nat will be my mom now?" Lily asked, her face alight with hope. Natalie looked to Caleb, who nodded encouragingly. "If you'd like that, I would be honored to be your mom," she told Lily, her voice thick with emotion. "I would like that very much," Lily declared, with all the certainty of a 7-year-old who knew exactly what she wanted. They were married 6 months later in a ceremony in their backyard, with Lily as the flower girl and ring bearer. Natalie's brothers and Caleb's colleagues mingled with billionaire investors and childhood friends, creating an eclectic celebration that perfectly represented their blended lives. For their honeymoon, they took Lily to Italy, exploring art museums by day and eating gelato by night. In a small gallery in Florence, standing before a Renaissance masterpiece, Natalie slipped her hand into Caleb's. "Happy?" he asked, watching her profile in the soft gallery light. "Beyond words," she replied, turning to face him. "You know, that night at the restaurant when Marcus stormed out, I thought it was the worst moment of my life. Now I see it was the universe making room for something better." "Much better," Lily agreed from Caleb's other side, where she was studying the painting with impressive concentration for an almost 8-year-old. "Even better than unicorns," Caleb laughed, squeezing both their hands. "High praise indeed." 2 years later, their family grew with the birth of twins, a boy and a girl who had Natalie's auburn hair and Caleb's quiet determination. Lily embraced her role as big sister with pride, reading to the babies from her favorite books and explaining the importance of proper crayon technique. Caleb's novel became a bestseller, followed by 2 sequels that allowed him to take a sabbatical from teaching to write full-time. Natalie continued as CEO of Donovan Global, but restructured the company to prioritize sustainable investments and established a foundation focused on educational equity. On quiet evenings, when the twins were asleep and Lily was reading in her room, Caleb and Natalie would sit on their back porch, marveling at the life they'd built together. "Do you ever miss your penthouse?" Caleb asked one night, thinking of the luxury she'd left behind. Natalie shook her head, leaning against his shoulder. "Not for a second. This is the richest I've ever been." And Caleb, surrounded by the evidence of a life filled with love, knew exactly what she meant.